When I went to the movies to see Django Unchained, I expected it to be pretty good. And after I saw it, I think it was pretty good. Alright, so basic plot. A bounty hunter, whose name I'm forgetting right now, frees Django from slavery by killing one of the slave owners and making the other one sign a contract. And basically, about, 30 minutes into the movie or so, Django agrees to work for him during the winter season, and in exchange, his bounty hunter friend will take him to the slave master of his wife to go and free her. And that's the basic plot. Of course, once they actually get to the place where his wife is being held, we meet Leonardo DiCaprio and Samuel L. Jackson. And these two, wow. I'll get into the performances later, but that's the basic story. And it flows pretty well. In the beginning, I was actually kind of surprised because during the trailer, they talk about them tracking down these two brothers for a good bit of it. And I thought half the movie would be finding them, then the other half would deal with Leonardo DiCaprio. But actually, no. Them killing those two brothers was like, it happened quickly, and I was surprised. I was like, whoa. And Leonardo DiCaprio actually took up most of the movie, which that's not, Leo's one of my favorite actors, so I was fine with it. But I was pleasantly surprised, so it took a tone I wasn't fully expecting, which it was overly gory, which, first off, disclaimer, I've not seen many Quentin Tarantino movies. I've seen a few, but I haven't seen enough to determine his style, but I think I know it now. And basically, yeah, at first I thought it was being a little too inconsistent with its pacing, because the first, third of it or so moved so fast, and then once they got to where Leonardo DiCaprio was, it really slowed down. But I guess sorry I got cut off. I was just saying that's basically probably just a story kind of settling in. But with that being said, in all honesty, I thought the second half of the movie was good, but I thought the first half of the movie was fantastic. I enjoyed it a lot more. And again, Leonardo DiCaprio is one of my favorite actors, but it's like once he got in the movie onwards, it was not as good. It was still good, and if it had been in that quality all the way through, I'd have walked out thinking that was a really good movie. But my God, like the first hour or so of this movie, it was seriously on pace to be one of my favorite movies. I was sitting there thinking, have I just stumbled upon a masterpiece? I think I have. This is one of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen. I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied. It's late at night and I'm tired. But I want to get these out because I've been so late. But I was so friggin' impressed by this movie. And again, once you got to Leo, it was not as bad. It wasn't as bad as I'm probably making it out to be, but it lost some of its swag. Just like the pacing of the first third was so fast, and so it wasn't even really random, but it flowed so well. And with Leo, it stopped down so much it was just slightly noticeable. With that being said, it was still a fantastic movie. It just went from being one of my favorite movies to being a very good movie. And with that being said, I was still thinking while this was happening, because if I see a movie and I know I'm going to be giving it a review, I kind of think about what I'm going to rate it in my mind. And while all that was happening, I was still thinking, yeah, it's probably still a 10, just because it's my preference. I preferred the movie to be faster, but that doesn't mean someone else won't. Some people would like it slowed down. But I thought this movie was a masterwork when it was fast, and just a really good movie when it was slower. But with that being said, it is not getting a 10 for me. What? Yeah. And there's really two major reasons, and they both revolve around Django's partner. Again, he had a fantastic performance, and he certainly deserved an Oscar nod for it. And I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the man's name. I feel really bad about it. But anyway, I'll dive into it briefly. I don't want these reviews to be 10 minutes like they have been. I'm going to try and make this one the first shorter one. So I'm going to dive into it briefly and then give a rating. Okay, Django's partner. One of the best performances in any movie I've seen all year long, except for probably Les Mis. But I'm not going to talk about Les Mis. But he was fantastic in this movie. Very, very good. And the beginning, one of my favorite scenes in this movie, what may end up being one of my favorite movie scenes ever, is I'm not going to dive into what he does, but basically, it's the first town they get to once he, quote unquote, frees Django. He acts so cool. He does something awesome. He gets them, both of them, into a situation where you're interested to see how they're going to get out of it. And he gets them out. And he looks so awesome for doing it. But then all of a sudden, he does something. God. I get spoilers, by the way, if you haven't noticed. He shoots Leonardo DiCaprio's character right in front of all of his henchmen or whatever, and he ends up getting shot for it on the spot. Of course you're going to get shot for it on the spot. And you may, if you haven't seen the movie, you may be saying, he's just crying because one of his favorite characters died. No, of course not. It's inconsistent. Throughout the entire... Actually, I'm going to tie this into something else. Earlier in the movie, when I say earlier, I mean about halfway through it or so, you see a slave getting attacked by one of Calvin Candy, Leonardo DiCaprio's character's dog. And this really bothers him. Now, I couldn't tell you why it bothers him. Throughout the first act of the movie or so, him and Django are on these bounty missions, killing people mercilessly, and it's not fazing him at all. There's one part where a man's with his son, and Django doesn't want to shoot him. And he basically tells him, if you want to be in the business, you got to do this. And, Django manages to kill him with his son right in front of him, and this guy does not flinch. But if a slave gets attacked by a dog, which I'm sure happened an awful lot back then, ooh, it shakes him up. Oh my gosh. Ooh, that's too much for him. That's too much. That's bullcrap. Get that out of here. A man who kills people mercilessly throughout the first act, all of a sudden is shaken up when one little slave is attacked by a dog. And I know it's a big deal, but it's a very small deal compared to what he's seen. And I know Quentin Tarantino is trying to get across the slavery is bad message. And that's a good message. I understand that. And this movie overall did a good job at delivering that, I think. But that's the way he got the message across was the worst part, because I understand if you want this man to be fazed by it, but it just does not work when you make him such a hardcore bamf in the first act just to be a cowering, again, it wasn't even like it was that horrible an act compared to what slaves probably got back then. And then he just flat out shoots him. I mean, he knew that was almost like suicide. He knew. And actually, when I realized what he was going to do, because, there's a way you can kind of tell what he's going to do before he does it. I thought if he kills him and then gets out of there alive, this movie is one of my favorite movies, because, again, the slow pace kind of bothered me. It didn't bother me that much, but, there were so many few errors in this movie that one little thing is worth pointing out, just to find something. So I said this will be one of my favorite movies. This movie is genius. If he shoots Leonardo DiCaprio's character and they just clean house. But no, he just gets shot. And what's the major reason? Because a slave got attacked by a dog. Who cares? Did you pay attention to what you were doing before in the movie? I don't think so, Mr. Beard Man. I don't think so. But you need to kind of try and understand that what is a big deal in this movie, which what that guy did is inconsistent and a big deal. But while it's a big deal in Django Unchained, it would probably be a small deal in a lesser movie. I probably wouldn't even go over it. So with that being said, this is going to be a very rare case. Let me say this: Django Unchained it's probably not one of my favorite movies. It's not top 10. It might be top 20. And the more that I think about it, the more I feel like I want to see it again, because I might like it the more I see it. Like, there are a lot of movies that I'm like that. But after my first viewing, I'm going to give it a rare score of 9 out of 10. Let me explain why this is rare. If a movie gets a 9, then if I feel like a movie deserves a 9, I feel like it's so close, just bump it up to a 10. It probably deserves it anyway after all the hard work. But this problem really bothered me. I mean, just sitting there in the movie theater, it bothered me. If it was just something I kind of caught later, and I'm like, that might bother me something, I didn't notice it, and maybe I'd sneak it in it with a 10. But since I noticed it, I've got to give it a 9. But it's one of the most entertaining movies I've ever seen, especially that first half. And again, the second half still is not as big a deal I made out to be. It's just a big deal with the little mistakes in the movie. So go see it if you can. I certainly recommend it.